Disclaimer. Judge Ron Rangel is providing this podcast and website for educational purposes only, as well as to give the public general information regarding topics related to the criminal justice system. The views, thoughts, and opinions of his guest speakers are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Judge Rangel. All rise. You are now listening to Beyond the Gavel with Judge Ron Rangel, educating the public and expanding mindsets. Subscribe on our website, beyondthegavelpodcast.com, or your favorite podcast platform for more of the latest podcast episodes and updates.
Welcome to Beyond the Gavel with Judge Ron Rangel. I'm your host. Today in the studio, we have Councilman Marc Whyte. Now, Councilman Whyte was born and raised in Texas. Marc grew up in a family of four before attending Wake Forest University in 2002, where he earned a bachelor's degree. He moved to San Antonio after graduating from St. Mary's University School of Law in 2006. Marc and his wife Lauren met in law school and married in 2009. They live in San Antonio's Marymount neighborhood, have two talented and spirited daughters, Ashlyn and Olivia. He also owns his own law practice and represents businesses and individuals in a variety of matters, including commercial litigation, property damage claims, business transactions, and employment disputes. Now, Marc's interest in public service began while he was an undergrad, and he later began volunteering on various Republican campaigns. Now, since that time, he's become involved in the grassroots of City Council District 10 as a member of his own neighborhood association, Marymount, as well as serving on the board of the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance. Additionally, Marc has served on the City of San Antonio's Ethics Review Board, the city's bond committee related to parks, and on the board at the Port of San Antonio. Most recently, from 2019 to 2023, he served as District 10 zoning commissioner, while at that same time serving on the state of Texas Public Transportation Advisory Committee as a Greg Abbott appointee. Welcome, Councilman Marc Whyte.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Very appreciated for taking the opportunity to come on. So I read your bio. You want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, sure. The District 10 City Councilman. As of May of this year, I was honored to be elected, winning 58% of the vote, and it was a field of 7 candidates. So I was happy to get that done without a runoff.
Wow.
I'm a family guy. I got 2 little girls. You know, they're my pride and joy. I spend every moment with them that I can. And I got a beautiful wife, Lauren, who's an appellate attorney. And if I don't say so myself, one of the best in the city.
So you are a civil trial lawyer and you're married to an appellate attorney.
That's right.
You want to sort of quickly tell the folks that are listening in exactly what the differences are?
Yeah. So I'm the big picture guy that likes being in court talking to juries. And my wife is the detail-oriented writer. I tell folks she grades the work of us trial lawyers.
So she studies what you're doing.
That's right. And tells us when we're doing right and when we're doing wrong, you know, much like my everyday life at home.
Sounds like a good marriage.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, you had run for office before this council race. Is that right?
Yeah. In 2018, when Speaker Joe Strauss sort of decided there at the end that he was going to leave office, I threw my hat in the race. Never had done it before. And what a great experience it was. I think we did great. And Steve Allison won that race, and he's still the state representative for District 121. And he and I have really become close friends.
That's right. Now, that's a north side district, right? That covers parts of north side San Antonio and goes northeast.
It is. It's funny. District 121 and my city council district really overlap. It's about from the northern part of Alamo Heights up over 410, but to the east of 281, between 281 and 35, and it goes up over 1604.
Excellent. That's what I was going to ask you. What are the similarities and differences of campaigning for something like a state representative position in a city council? I know they overlap, but is there anything different about the way you had to do that?
So the main difference, I suppose, is that when you run for state representative, it's a partisan race. I was running in the Republican primary.
Right.
Whereas when you run for city council, it's a non nonpartisan election. So there are no R's and no D's next to the names on the ballot. But really, other than that, I am who I am. This past election, running for city council, I let the voters know where I stood. I'm a conservative guy. I'm somebody that really believes strongly in law enforcement. I want to create jobs, keep taxes low, and those are the same things I ran on when I ran for state representative back in 2018.
Excellent. So you have the same population, you have the same groups of folks that you're appealing to. It's just a different type of race. Now, the city council race in San Antonio is a different time frame as it relates to when the election is compared to other types of races. Is that right?
Yeah. For other types of races, usually there's a primary,
Right.
which is in March.
Right.
And then, of course, the general elections are all in November. But for city council races, they're on odd years and they're in May. So right at the start of the summer.
So everybody runs at the same time, and you made it through without a runoff.
It was great.
Well, that's amazing.
When those results came in the night of May 6th, it was something I'll never forget.
I bet. As it relates to being on city council, how does that intersect with criminal justice issues? You mentioned that you're a law and order proponent, right?
Yeah.
How is it that those two connect?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question today because just this week, we're preparing for the budget. The final budget's going to get put into place in a couple of weeks. And this week, we had our briefings from law enforcement. And so we got to speak with Chief McManus and we got to hear about what sort of equipment and resources they need. And it's our job on city council to, we decide where the money goes. And when it comes to law enforcement, I'm always going to be one that thinks whatever they need to do their job safely and effectively, we need to make sure to provide for them.
So we're also within the county, we're in the middle of the budget process as well. I guess we all kind of do it at the same time. And the difference, I think, with city council is it's more of a top down, right? There are 10 elected city council folk on city council along with the mayor.
Right.
And so then the city council is responsible for appointing and choosing positions like the fire chief, the chief of police. Is that right?
Yeah. So our city manager gets to select fire chief and the police chief. Our city council gets to appoint municipal court judges. And the city council and the mayor is really responsible for the overall policy decisions that we make.
I got it. So then the city council is more of the legislative body of the municipality, the city of San Antonio.
That's right. We set the policy, and then our city staff, who's fantastic, by the way, they're supposed to execute the policies we set for.
How many folks do y'all have on staff? Right? You have the council person, and then you have so many people that work.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot of folks,
yeah.
But this is a big city. We need a lot of folks. But I'll tell you, that's one of the things we're fighting over this budget season. Some of my colleagues, they like to add more and more people to the government, whereas my philosophy is, do we really need the extra personnel? I'd prefer to put that money straight back into the community.
So as it relates to the budgetary process, what is your focus for looking to do this particular budget cycle?
Yeah, I want to do exactly what I said I was going to do on the campaign, which is based on the concerns that I heard from my District 10 neighbors. It starts with crime. It's unfortunate, but a lot of folks don't feel safe in their homes these days. Thefts are way up. So for me, budget starts with making sure we get more police on the street. And it looks like we're going to get at least 100 new officers on the street. So really pleased about that. Number 2, property taxes, right? And you saw about a month or so ago, we were able to raise the property tax exemption to the maximum that the city can do. We got it from 10% to 20%.
That's right.
So that was great. And the third issue we're facing, and it's a tough one, but it's our homeless problem. And I heard a lot about that on the campaign trail. And it's really a delicate balance of how we want to spend money to try to solve this problem. I am completely against just throwing more and more money at a problem without really knowing where we want to end up. And we've already spent a bunch on the homeless issue. So we need to be more strategic with how we use our resources to help get these folks off the street. Listen, we need to be compassionate because a lot of them have some issues that need to be dealt with. But at the same time, again, this is a public safety issue that we need to address.
As the homeless population seems to be growing in San Antonio and really across all urban areas in the country. You talked about putting resources into ways that could address the issue. Anything in particular that you think would be something that you would like to try?
Yeah, so here's what I think the plan should be. First of all, we've got to stop other cities from sending their homeless here to San Antonio. We need to collaborate with the other cities, but they need to be a part of the solution rather than just sending their folks here. That's number one. Number two, the city is going to take a housing first approach to this. And we're going to look at low barrier housing. Right? Not every homeless person can qualify to get into a haven for hope, right? But if we can find a way to move these folks off the street into a low barrier shelter, that would help the problem. But here's the key. For able-bodied human beings, the taxpayer should not be forced to foot the bill to provide them shelter forever and ever and ever. For able-bodied folks, we've got to move them into the low barrier shelter, provide them whatever services are needed, including some workforce training, and then get them back out to being self-sustaining members of society. Now, for the folks that for one reason or another cannot take care of themselves, maybe it's a physical permanent disability or mental disability, then for those folks, we should have that, I guess, safety net, if you will, to move them into some sort of permanent supportive housing.
Now, you talk about how other areas within the state, maybe out of state, are sending folks to San Antonio. You think about San Antonio as being like the urban core of the South Texas region, which is huge geographically, right? So the Haven for Hope, I think, is a big destination for them. And the resources that we have in San Antonio and in Bexar County as it relates to folks with mental illnesses and other related issues with the homeless population. How do we deal with that type of attraction that San Antonio has to other communities?
That's the problem, and I've visited numerous fire stations in my district over the past few months since I've been in office. And you talk to some of our firefighters and they're dealing with a bunch of brush fires every day, right? That are caused by the homeless in the woods, wherever they're trying to seek some shade.
Right.
And they have told me, Councilman, we talked to these people and they're from other cities and they were told to come here to San Antonio and that we would take care of them. And so the issue, of course, is they get here to San Antonio. Many of them try to, go to Haven for Hope and are told that they may not qualify for one reason or another, but then they're here in our city and they've got to find, somewhere to hang out. And so it's a problem.
So related to the budget, what does the city's financial health look like?
We're on pretty strong footing. And this is a $3.7 billion budget.
Wow. That's significant.
It really is. But I'll tell you, having more money at your disposal doesn't mean you should be spending all the money, as I try to remind my colleagues constantly. And the money we do spend, we've got to use it wisely. We've got to use it strategically. We should be using it in a way that promotes opportunity and growth for our citizens and our businesses.
So going back to the practice that you have, I think it's been a few years now that city council get paid. I'm not sure exactly what the dollar figures are, but it's like in the 40s.
That's right, in the low 40s.
Annually for council folk. It used to be where city council members were paid per meeting, and it was something like $20 or something.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
So the argument used to be, unless you are independently wealthy or you have some other means of income, it's very difficult for, generally speaking, people.
This will obviously take a lot of time away from my law practice, so it'll certainly be a financial hit to our family. But it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm willing to sacrifice on the financial side because I truly believe that I can do a lot of good for the citizens of District 10 and for San Antonio. So that's why I do it. I'm enjoying it so far, and I think we're off to a great start.
So it's a balance, right? You got to balance your personal life. I have seen on the campaign trail that I have had to endure in the course of my career, I've seen a lot of council members work, and I'm always amazed at the time commitment that it takes. What's that balance like for you? To balance of your practice, working on council, raising the beautiful family that you are?
Well, the family is number one. And I'll tell you, my first day when we had our full staff meeting, I said to my folks, listen, I'm much different than my predecessor, right? Clayton Perry didn't have young kids or a family here in San Antonio. And so he could do the nighttime events and all the things. For me, it starts with my two little girls, and I'm committed to trying to be home every night that I can at 6:30 to 7 so that I can have dinner and put my girls to bed. That's just a priority for me. I need to be a good dad. I need to be a good husband. So finding that balance actually was easy because I said, we're going to do this no matter what. Now, the balance between the law practice and city council has been a little bit tougher. I've had to forego some work. I've had to pass a lot of the work to my law partner, as well as our associate and our staff. I'm having to scale back, obviously, because the vast majority of my time is spent right down here at City Hall.
So a healthy family makes a healthy council person.
Agreed.
Which makes a healthy community.
That's
where
right.
it starts. That's right. So you talked about having to forego some work. I think some folks probably wonder, is there ever some sort of conflict situation that you would get into because of your practice as it relates to your work as a council person?
Theoretically, it could, right? If there was a client of mine that, for instance, was trying to get city business maybe or something like that, but I haven't run into anything like that.
Very nice. So what's the difference between like the civil work that you do? I'm a criminal district judge, so we handle obviously criminal cases. Before we got on the air, you were talking about how familiar you are with the courthouse across the street, those civil courts. What's the biggest difference that you think as it relates to those types of practices?
Oh, wow. A lot. You guys on the criminal side are often dealing with people's freedom, and there are no stakes higher than that when you're dealing with somebody's freedom. On the civil side, of course, we're just arguing over money, and that's important to people. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, people's livelihoods are at stake in those civil matters. But I would tell you, you know, I've never practiced criminal law, but those are high stakes there. You see a lot of things that a lot of folks are probably not very comfortable talking about or seeing, whereas on the civil side, it's a little more everyday matters that businesses, you know, deal with on a daily basis.
There's a perception that on the criminal side, you have more of the trials, more of the juries, more of those kind of decision-making bodies, whereas on the civil side, you have more of the paper-driven, everyday kind of advancing the ball a little bit. Is that kind of how that works?
100% true. And, you know, I love the trials. My dad always wanted me to become a prosecutor because I love the trials, and that's where I thrive. But in civil practice these days, you're lucky to get a trial once every 5 years or so.
How has COVID affected the practice of law on the civil side?
You know, it's really changed it. The biggest difference is hearings and depositions and mediations. If they weren't in your city, a lot of times you'd be out on the road driving to different cities to do whatever it is. But these days, you can sit in your office, do a deposition via Zoom. You can do a mediation via Zoom. You can do hearings still in a lot of counties via Zoom. So it's cut down a lot of the travel time. And really, I have mixed feelings about that. You know, I like being out. I like being in front of people. I think a lot of times you get a lot better results when folks are there in person opposed to sitting behind a computer screen. But I'm not sure that's gonna change in the near future.
Yeah, they do seem on the civil side to have been able to have more of a lasting impact as it relates to being able to do those types of hearings online on Zoom. So as a councilman, what type of requirements? Let's say there's somebody out there and they're saying, I would love to run for city council. And I know that there's a lot of people that look at the council in that way, right? What sort of requirements are there for somebody to run?
So practically speaking, I would say for most folks, you got to build up to it. You need to build a resume of public service to where people know you're someone that's willing to give back to the community and that you're somebody that has good ideas that would help the community. You know, for me, the morning after the unfortunate story broke about what happened with Councilman Perry, my phone started ringing immediately. and folks saying, hey, this may be something you should really look at. We'd love for you to be down there at City Hall. And I just credit that to the fact that I put in a lot of work over the past 10 years. That grassroots work, getting to know the neighborhoods in your district, probably first and foremost, that's where you need to start. And then getting on some city boards so that you can, learn what the city government is all about. Those are the two places I would start. There's probably no, formula, no right formula for everyone. As we've seen in the presidential elections, people can come out of nowhere in the right circumstance. But I'd tell someone, if they're looking to do it, get involved with your neighborhoods first and foremost.
When somebody gets elected as a judge, they send us to Austin or Dallas, and there's like something that we call baby judges school, right? When I was a prosecutor, they sent us to baby prosecutor school. Is there a baby councilman's school, baby council person school out there?
That'd be great, but no, there's not.
No?
And what's amazing is you get elected. I got elected May 6th. And then in your first 4 or 5 months, you're hopping into the most important time of the year, which is the budget season. So it comes at you fast. But I'll tell you, we've got a great city staff, led by our city manager, Eric Walsh. And they do a good job of explaining things to you and getting you ready as best they can. And then on the other side of it, my staff, right? One thing I know we have done really well is I've hired a bunch of great people. We have a really good team, and I think they're making me look good now.
I've enjoyed talking to Councilman Marc Whyte. Let's go ahead and take a quick break.
This is Q&A with Judge Ron Rangel. Submit your question today at beyondthegavelpodcast.com.
Welcome back. This is Q&A. We got a great question here. Do judges have security? Actually, the answer is yes. Now, there are different types of judges within the system. First, within the courtroom, you have security in the form of what we call a bailiff. Now, the bailiff for district courts and county courts at law that handle felony and misdemeanor cases actually work for the sheriff. The sheriff is an independently elected official, but the sheriff assigns individuals to work within those particular courts. If you go to the justices of the peace, you have what we refer to as constable. Constables work as the bailiffs within justices of the peace. And here in San Antonio, we have 4 separate precincts that have justices of the peace. Now, those particular security officers that are assigned to the courts also provide security detail at a judge's home if the judge feels that it's necessary. Now, Councilman, I'm going to ask you, what about on the municipal court side? What security is offered by the city there?
Yeah, there's bailiffs there as well.
Oh, I've enjoyed that question. Thank you for asking. We're going to jump back into the show.
This is Q&A with Judge Ron Rangel. Submit your question today at beyondthegavelpodcast.com.
Welcome back. I'm here talking to Councilman Marc Whyte. Well, you've been there a couple months. Is there anything that has surprised you? Anything that is like, I had no clue that this would have impacted me this way, or the way something worked?
I would tell you that building relationships with my council colleagues is something I wondered about. They're all sort of on the other side of the aisle from me. We don't agree on a lot, but I think everybody's been willing, for the most part, to give me a chance, just like I've reached out to them and said, hey, let's find some common ground. Let's get to know each other a bit. And I think that's so key at every level of government. If we had more folks willing to listen to each other and understand each other, more things could get done. And so I guess I would tell you that I've been pleasantly surprised with everybody being open to me, and think it's put us in a place where we have a chance to really accomplish a lot over the next 2 years.
It really is all about relationships, right? I think the same thing happens in the county. It's important that we work together and figure out how to problem solve as a group. So as it relates to San Antonio, it's always been my understanding that it's a different type of city council than what exists in a lot of other places. Is that right?
Here we have a city manager form of government, if you will. So people think the mayor rules all, and that's not true here. The mayor is just one of 11. He's got one vote like the rest of us do. He has the power to put people on committees, But after that, he's one of 11 votes. City manager, in a lot of ways, sets the agenda and a stronger voice here than maybe in some other forms of city government.
So then you work for the people in San Antonio at large, but you also are concerned about the constituents in District 10.
Absolutely.
What are some of the issues that are unique to District 10? You did mention that you have a different take on some certain issues compared to your colleagues. What is it about District 10 that makes it distinctively different than the other districts?
District 10 is special. And the number one reason it's special is our neighborhoods. No other district in the city has these strong, different neighborhoods like we have in District 10. And most of them have really good neighborhood associations where every month a bunch of people gather to talk about the issues and converse with each other. And it's not the same as it is in all those other districts. So that I would tell you it starts there. Other than that, we have great parks in District 10. We're right in that northeast corridor. Gordon Hartman's properties, Morgan's Wonderland, the soccer stadium out there, really neat. I just think District 10 is a special place.
What are some of the parks that are out there? I'm thinking Hardburger Park is out there. Is that right?
You got McAllister and you got Comanche Lookout. A lot of great bike trails, walking trails. It's a neat area that's got a little bit of everything. But most of all, I'll tell you, it's the people. We're a district of hardworking, good people.
It is a beautiful area, and I always enjoy my own campaign activities in that area. Well, you mentioned that running for city council is a nonpartisan race. How does that affect the way you campaign?
Honestly, it really didn't. You know, I'm me. I can only be me. And so our message to the District 10 voters was the same as what my message was, honestly, when I ran back in 2018 for state representative. You know, it's about public safety. It's about creating good jobs for people and just trying to improve the lives of those in our district. So I think you'll find with me, that's my message, and it's gonna stay that way for as long as I'm in office.
So there was a topic that you and I had communicated about, something called House Bill 2127. You want to tell us a little bit about what that is?
So the media has dubbed it the Death Star Bill, but its actual name is the Regulatory Consistency Act. And here has been probably the biggest area of disagreement between my colleagues and I thus far. The bill was just passed by the Texas legislature, and what it's designed to do is eliminate the patchwork of different laws that exist from city to city. So imagine a business trying to do work here in San Antonio, El Paso, Austin, and each city has different rules related to labor or whatever it may be. That's going to be tough for a business to do. You're going to have to hire a bunch of lawyers to figure it out. It's going to be expensive and cumbersome. And so the Regulatory Consistency Act is designed to eliminate that and said, hey, in these areas, cities, you can't legislate because we're going to do that at the state level, or it's already been done at the federal level. And so this is going to be a bill that's really good for Texas businesses, in my opinion. My council colleagues, however, they don't see it that way. They think this is taking away the ability of a city to govern itself. And, you know, I just think that's the wrong way to look at it. For me, this is going to force our city council to focus on city issues, the issues that the citizens elected us to address. Fix the streets, fix the sidewalks, stop the crime, do something about the homeless issue. That's what we should be focused on.
So is it my understanding that the city of San Antonio has actually sued the state as it relates to this bill?
That's correct. So the city of Houston filed the first lawsuit, I believe, against the state, and San Antonio joined that lawsuit.
So where about in that process is that lawsuit? Is it just getting started? Is it?
Well, you will not be surprised to know that they filed the lawsuit in Travis County. And so we're in the district court in Travis County, and there's going to be summary judgment motions that are filed, and somebody's going to win one way or the other, because this is a question of law, right? Not a fact issue. So a judge is going to have to make a ruling on whether HB 2127 is constitutional. If the answer that they get is no, it's not, then we're going to go up to the appellate court there. And if the answer is still no, it's not, we're going to end up in the Texas Supreme Court. And I have a feeling this will end up with our Texas Supreme Court.
And actions that you're sort of referencing relate to things like the city council mandating certain breaks for folks versus other cities and what they do. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
That's it. You probably remember the paid sick leave debate from a few years ago. And what happened? The appellate court told the city, hey, you can't do that. So it's things like that, water breaks, and, cities shouldn't be getting involved in how private companies do their scheduling. And so that's really what this bill is designed to prevent.
So you mentioned dealing with things like streets and sidewalks. What are some of the other things that the folks on city council have to deal with?
Mainly infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the calls we get every day from our constituents. Fix this road, fix this sidewalk.
Water pipes,
all kinds of things like that. So infrastructure, I would tell you, is number one. Crime, where we set the policy and provide the money to our SA Police Department, making sure they have the resources that they need. Fire, same thing, making sure they have the resources that they need. Day to day, it's about taking care of our neighborhoods, whether it's trash pickup, streets, sidewalks, whatever it is. And then big picture on the policy side, I filed my first CCR.
What is a CCR?
So that's a council consideration request. And that's the way for city council people to put forth policy ideas or policy proposals. And for me, I actually filed my first one several weeks ago, which is designed to mitigate the negative effects of city construction projects.
So that's almost like a bill in the legislature.
It's moving towards getting a new law passed.
Right.
And as you drive around San Antonio, you've probably noticed, like everyone has, there's construction everywhere, and it's taking a long, long time. So imagine construction going on outside of a restaurant or bar or whatever it is. People can't get in there, or it's a hassle to get in there. So we've got these businesses who are losing revenue because of that city-initiated construction project. So the bill I put forth says, hey, we got to do something to help this business during that time. Maybe pay their utilities during the time the construction was there, if they can show us that they suffered a financial loss. So we're looking to maybe create a fund that can help businesses who are being negatively impacted by the construction.
You're talking specifically about laws related to the city of San Antonio or the municipality. Now, within Bexar County, there are a lot of other cities. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, Castle Hills, Live Oak, Leon Valley, to name a few.
So what happens in it? Let's say that there is a law related to the city of San Antonio. You cross the street, you're getting into one of these other municipalities. How's that affected?
Exactly. And going back to 2127, imagine HEB operating in San Antonio, and then a few miles away, you have an HEB in Leon Valley, and say they have a different set of laws. I mean, that would be really tough for HEB to navigate, right? And so again, HB 2127 is going to do away with that problem.
As far as the person who's just hanging out on the street, going to the store, you could drive through several municipalities to get to the mall.
That's right.
Right. So that's interesting. I'd never really thought of that issue. So somebody who lives in the city of San Antonio is a citizen or a constituent of a council person, a council member, but they're also a constituent of a county. Like everybody in the city of San Antonio is my constituent. Also, they're constituents of people within the state, also constituents of our country.
That's right.
So how difficult is it to get along with the other jurisdictions, to get along with the other types of government infrastructure that oversees somebody within the city?
Well, I'll tell you, in my first 3 months in office, one of my concerns is that I don't see our city government effectively working with these other jurisdictions. Too many squabbles with the county over who should pay for what. With regard to the state, we already talked about, we're suing the state because of HB 2127, but that's not our only issue there. You obviously have heard of the issue we have on Broadway leading into downtown and how the city was not able, at least not yet to this point has been able to work with TxDOT to find a solution to how we're going to use the money that's been set aside for that area. So it's important for our city to be able to do that. And we talked about homeless earlier. We need to collaborate with the county and these other cities to have a plan for our region if we're going to effectively deal with that problem. So I definitely want to see better relations with other jurisdictions.
What specifically is the issue with the bond money was raised for Broadway?
The city wants bike lanes. They want to eliminate a lane on Broadway coming into downtown for a bike lane. And I mean, the state owns that portion of Broadway. TxDOT does not think that's a good idea. And so as a result, we've got gridlock.
Now, it's my understanding Senator Cruz is coming into town for something related to flights to DC. Is that right?
Yeah, let's just have this out there, right? San Antonio should have a direct flight to Washington, DC for a number of reasons, right? We are a big metropolitan city, number one. Number two, think about all the military we have here that travel up to DC all the time. We should have a direct flight. We've been fighting for a direct flight, and Senator Cruz has been helping us in that battle in his work up in the United States Senate. And we do expect him to be here in the coming weeks to talk more about this.
Well, Councilman, I've enjoyed speaking to you today. Are there any last words that you would have for anybody who's listening?
Well, I've enjoyed being here, and I'll just tell you that I'm excited to be the councilman here in District 10. I'm excited to get to work for the residents of San Antonio. If there's anything at all that my office can help with, feel free to look us up, District 10 Council Office, and we'll do anything we can to help you.
Absolutely. You've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
You've been listening to Beyond the Gavel with Judge Ron Rangel. Join us in the next 2 weeks where we are educating the public and expanding mindsets. Head to our website, beyondthegavelpodcast.com, or your favorite podcast platform to subscribe to the latest episodes and updates.